First Samuel 6 and 7 is tonight, all right? If you'll remember, in quick review, last week we learned that the Philistines, the group of people that are close to the Mediterranean in the land of Israel, and I'm going to use this map. Thanks, Big Chris, for bringing this map. That's a good visual to have. I also have maps posted on bradflack.com/1-Samuel. But the Philistines are going to be, by and large, in this southern coastline of Israel on the Mediterranean Sea. Now, if you go back into your history and you go back and you look at the seafaring peoples of the Eastern Mediterranean, which this is the Eastern Mediterranean here, there's another group that's mentioned quite often, and they're mentioned in Tyre and Sidon, which is more up in this area here, up into this area. That middle Mediterranean coast is the people that are called the you know what? I just had a brain fart. The Philistines, and then what's the seafaring people right here?
Well, the original one were the Phoenicians.
The Phoenicians. Yeah. Okay. So Philistines and the Phoenicians are here. Now the Phoenicians, from what we can tell, they didn't try to go inland, and they didn't really try to conquer any of these people. Now they did go across to Cyprus, and then we see them going up into Turkey, but we didn't see them traveling this direction for whatever reason. Now, there is myth, legend, hearsay, whatever you want to call it, that the Phoenicians were perhaps a group of actual Hebrews, Jews, Israelites, who split off, and that was just the people who wanted to be near and work around the sea. And so that group split off and went that direction. I cannot confirm nor deny that. There are differences between the two, but there's a whole lot of similarities as well. There's a whole lot of similarities between the people of Israel here and the Phoenicians and what they were doing there. If you look at language and some of the other stuff, it's very similar. Not exactly the same, but very similar. They had a lot of same kind of setups here. The other thing to keep in mind is you still have Egypt down here. Remember, we talked about, we went through Exodus chapter by chapter, verse by verse earlier this year. Egypt has not gone away. It's not dead and off the map. We still have Egypt today, right? You can go there now and see the pyramids are still there, and the Valley of the Kings. As a matter of fact, I don't know if I sent this out to the group. They just uncovered a set of pottery jars and some scrolls, some papyrus and stuff, that dates all the way back to 3,500 years ago, which puts it close-ish to the time of Moses. Isn't that incredible? So we had the Dead Sea Scrolls, which were found here in 1967, I think it was, and those were the Qumran, northwestern Dead Sea, and those people basically from Jerusalem, which is Jerusalem's right here. They said, we don't like the corruption of Jerusalem. We want to have a more pure following of a more pure faith of God, of Yahweh, Jehovah. So they left and went out to the desert. And they spent much of their time copying the Old Testament, word for word, copying it, memorizing it, utilizing it. And those are what's stored in all those jars that were in the caves that were discovered in 1967. That's where those are coming from. But we're talking 1960. That was stuff that was a little bit before Jesus' time. So we're talking in that dark period, which Chris is working on, a study between the Old Testament and the New Testament. There was 400 years of just
they call it the silent years.
The silent years. Okay. Now the Qumran people, the Essenes is what they're called. They were copying and lived during this dark period, the silent years, right before Jesus came. And so some people even wonder, I'm going way off topic now, but some people even wonder if John the Baptist was an Essene. Now, he has Essene-type statements that he makes, which we're not going to go into. We don't have time to go into all that today. But he has Essene-type statements that he makes, but he doesn't pull away and just...
What does that mean, Essene?
I'm going to tell you. So part of the Essene mindset was we're going to pull away and we're going to go hide in the desert away from those, let's call it those sinful people over there, those corrupt people over there. We're going to come over here and we're going to have our holy bubble right here. Okay. Now we want to add adherence to the Old Testament scriptures themselves, but we're going going to stay away from those people who are corrupt and not doing the right thing. So I get what they're saying. I get their heart, I guess, because you don't want to be corrupted by other people. But John the Baptist, the reason I'm saying that he either maybe started as an Essene and diverged, or maybe he just took a few of the kind of thoughts that they had, but he wasn't one, was because John the Baptist definitely went in and face forward was like, no, you need to get baptized for the forgiveness of your sins. You need to get in this water and let me baptize you for the. He was in the face guy. The Essenes were like, no, we're gonna come over here and do our thing over here. So that's why I'm saying some of the statements he has are kind of Essene, like calling out corruption and that kind of stuff. But it wasn't like I'm making pot shots from over here in my caves. He was in your face. John the Baptist was in your face. So in any case, that's this area. So where we have been studying is right here is Jerusalem and Bethel right here. If you'll remember from our Genesis study, Bethel is where Abram, before he becomes Abraham even, he sets up kind of a spot here on the road right there. But we actually can come right up here close to Mount Ebal. Close to Mount Ebal is where Shiloh is located. And so Shiloh is the town that's kind of where the tabernacle has been set up. Because we didn't have Jerusalem with the temple and all the, when you see a picture of Jerusalem, it's all this white stone and all the walls and the houses. They didn't have all that yet. So we have the over here close to Mount Ebal is Shiloh, and that's where they set up the tabernacle. Now, the route that we talked about last week, remember the ark? They took the ark. The Philistines took it. So that route kind of takes from here out to the area where Samson did his final stand, and he did push the columns down. That was Gad, right? That was Gad over here, and then down here, David and Goliath is close to Gath, which is different than Gad. There's a Gad and there's Gath.
But you're an archaeologist. They just found the gates to Gad.
Yes.
The entrance.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they've found they've uncovered Gath as well, and everything's bigger.
Yes, you're right.
Because there was giants, right? The houses were bigger, the beds were bigger, the doors are bigger. The
entryway, the stone.
So that was here, and then the ark was making its way back up to this direction, okay? So that's kind of where we ended last week. The Philistines still have the ark, but remember, they were saying, send this thing away from every town it goes to. People are dying because this Ark of the Covenant. We don't want this thing anymore. Get rid of it, okay? So that's where we are going into 1 Samuel chapter 6. So if you have your Bible, open to 1 Samuel chapter 6. If you don't have a Bible, just listen along, right? If you want to follow along with me, I'm in the modern English version. That's just what I use. That's my favorite version. But whatever you've got works, okay? If you're a New King James, an Old King James, whatever, Buddy King James, whatever the versions there are, just follow along. We're in 1 Samuel 6. Now the ark of the Lord had been in the country of the Philistines 7 months. So it wasn't like they just took it for a couple of days. They were there for 7 months. That's over half a year, all right? I mean, so think about it. They'd been there for a while. They were hanging on to it, even though the ark was killing them. Right? That's what we talked about in chapter 5.
They might have been hanging on to it also because it's worth a lot of money.
They're trying to figure out how can we keep it without getting hurt by it, because it's all gold. Yeah, look over here. It happened after they carried out, the hand of the Lord was against the city with a very great destruction. He struck them into the city, both small and great, and tumors broke out on them. Therefore, they sent it to the next town. And when the town got there, they said, they brought the ark of the God of Israel to slay us and our people now. So they sent and gathered the lords to send them away the ark, so they didn't want to die. Like every town they were going to.
Because they were using it as an idol.
That's right. They were using it as spoils of war instead of respecting that it was remember the mercy seat. We talked about that in Exodus. The top of it is the mercy seat. Now God is going to judge sin, but he didn't tell Moses to make me a throne to sit on so I can judge people. He said, make me a throne that I can have mercy, that I can hang out with people. Even when they don't deserve it, I can hang out with them.
You sound like you're setting up to be Indiana Jones.
All right. So chapter 6, the ark of the Lord had been in the country of the Philistines 7 months. The Philistines called for the priest and the diviners of the Philistine faith, not of the Hebrews, saying, what shall we do with the ark of the Lord? Tell us how we should send it to its place. Now, I want you to listen to the words that they're saying. They're going to put a plan together, okay? They're really going to do. This sounds like a Bradford plan, okay? So they said, if you send away the ark, it's going to be good. They said, if you send away the ark of the God of Israel, do not send it empty, but return to him, to God, the capital H, him, a guilt offering. Then you will be healed, and it will be known to you why his hand is not removed from you. So they're basically saying, don't just send it back. Send it back with something. Saying like, we're sorry, right? Acknowledge God here. So even though they're not priests of God, they're making a pretty good call, right? And they're basically saying, you say sorry for offending God. Let's go to verse 4. Then they said, what will be the guilt offering which we will return to him? And the priest and the diviners said, 5 golden tumors and 5 golden mice, according to the number of the lords of the Philistines. So if you remember, go back to chapter 5, when the ark came into town, they got tumors. And I proposed, if you remember last week, perhaps it may have been something like a bubonic type plague that was transmitted through the mice. And so therefore there's a connection to the mice here. Okay? I don't know that for certain. But obviously they felt like mice was important enough to make a gold mouse. Okay? And gold tumors. Which I don't know if a gold tumor, I'm guessing it just looks like a gold ball.
With the culture back then, like let's just say you had an ailment or you had something wrong with your leg. Like your leg was infected. What you would do is you would make a terracotta leg. And you would go put this on the altar or whatever God you're worshiping. So that makes sense to tumor.
Yeah.
Because that was the culture back then. If you had a bad hand, you would make the terracotta of the hand, like a replica.
Yeah.
And then you would go pray to your God.
You're putting it over there. You're giving it over to them. That's good. All right. I like that. So they said 5 golden tumors and 5 golden mice, according to the number of the lords of the Philistines. For one plague was on all of you and on your lords, on the people who were in charge of you. Therefore you will make images of your tumors and images of your mice that ravage the land. I'm guessing they had some sort of, tumors and mice all over the place. It sounds like a nightmare of a situation to me.
Yeah. I'm
not a fan of, I'm not particularly scared of a mouse, but if you had this whole room full of mice, I'd be pretty grossed out. Yeah. Okay. Therefore, you will make images of your tumors and images of your mice that ravage the land, and you will give glory to the God of Israel. Perhaps he will lighten his hand from off you, even from off your gods and from off your land. So they're basically saying, excuse me, so what they're saying here is they're basically saying, listen, we recognize that this is the God of Israel who's doing this. Now, they're not saying he's the ultimate God. They're just saying that's the God of Israel. This is our gods over here. And we need to appease him, make him, hey, we're sorry, here's a sacrifice. No, but they were saying, then he'll leave us alone, leave our gods alone, which right there tells me they recognize that the God of Israel is more powerful than their gods. And will maybe leave our land alone, which maybe they were having a drought or whatever was happening, okay? And that comes up here in a second, to leave our land alone, okay? Why then do you harden your hearts as the Egyptians and Pharaoh hardened their hearts? So if you remember from our Exodus study, we talked about that when you were hardening your heart, that word harden is really like flexing, right? So tell me the definition of flexing your muscle. What's going on when you flex your muscle? Like you have a neurological response from your brain to that muscle group to contract it up and to hold it tight. And I guess to also loosen it, right? You tell your muscles to loosen as well as tighten, right? It goes both directions. So he's asking, why are you holding on to this thing? It's been 7 months. People are dying. Tumors, mice. This is a nightmare. Why do you harden your hearts as the Egyptians and the Pharaoh hardened their hearts? He's saying, why are you continuing to fight this thing? Just get rid of it. Right? Just get rid of it. When he dealt severely with them, did they not let the people go and they departed? He's like, God spanked the Egyptians pretty good because they hardened their heart. Do you want to continue to get spanked here? I mean, there's a pattern here, people. We got to get this ark out of here, okay? We've got to get this ark gone. So here's their plan. This is the Bradford Plan. Step number 1. Now, therefore, make a new cart, a new stagecoach, or whatever, okay? Make a new cart and take 2 milk cows on which there has never been a yoke. Now, I'm not much of a farmer, but I'm going to tell you, when I see pictures of farmers working, I normally don't see a milk cow pulling a plow behind it.
They're just standing around.
They're just standing around. So if you put a yoke with weight on it onto a milk cow, what do you think his first reaction is going to be? Just to be like, well, I ain't going anywhere, right? What is this on? They're not trained to know what to do. They're not going. Yeah, they're not going anywhere. Okay. So step 1 is make a new cart and find some cows who would not normally do any work and put a work harness on them. This is step 1 of the Bradford Plan. Okay. Then tie the cows to the cart and bring their calves home away from them. So you have like mommies and babies. You have a daughter, you said?
Yes, I have 2.
2 daughters, okay? You have a daughter and a son?
I have a daughter and 2 sons.
And 2 sons. So when your baby's crying and you hear the baby crying, what do you do?
I say, go to sleep.
Shut up! Quit crying.
The football game's on.
No, but you've got a newborn baby, and let's say that you're bottle feeding or maybe even breastfeeding, and you hear the baby crying. Your reaction is normally, I got to go feed the baby, right? So we've got step 1, get milk cows, which are not used to working, make a new cart and connect them to the cart, and then take away their babies. Now the moms can't get milked by the calves. So what do you think they're going to be doing? They're going to get pressure in their udders because the calves are not suckling. And so they're going to be wondering like, okay, where's my calf? I got pressure. Pressure's building here. Give me these calves. Okay? So I'm gonna what you're doing is you're setting up a failure point where the cows are like, okay, I've got this yoke, whatever, but we got to go find our calves because we got to go feed these things. Okay? Are you working with me now? Then tie the cows to the cart and bring their calves home away from them. Then take the ark of the Lord and set it on the cart. And put the images of gold which you return to him for a guilt offering. Remember the golden tumors and the golden mice. Put those on that cart too. And send it away that it may go. This is step 5 of the Bradford Plan. See if it goes up by the way of his own territory to Beth Shemesh. Then he has done us this great evil. God, has done us this great evil. But if not, then we will know that it is not his hand that has struck us. It was just by chance that all this happened to us. So are you guys hearing what they're saying? They're literally saying, let's set these cows that are never going to work. They're trying to produce milk and they got calves. We're going to take the calves away and we're going to put this cart harness on them and we're just going to let them go and see what happens. If they travel up the road and go back to the people of Israel, then we'll know it was the God of Israel that was doing all this to us. But if the cows just kind of wander around or come back to us to find the calves, then it was just all an inconsequential coincidence that just happened to us. They were playing a big game, weren't they?
You can videotape the experiment.
This would be like, like the Philistines' funniest videos, right? They're like, see if these cows will go. So you see what the scenario is now. This is the Bradford Plan. Okay? This is the Bradford Plan. This is a horrible plan. So verse 10. The men did so, and they took 2 milk cows, tied them to the cart, and shut up their calves at home. And they set the ark of the Lord on the cart, as well as the box with the mice of gold and the images of the tumors in gold. And then the cows took straightway to the way of Beth Shemesh and went along the highway, lowing as they went. What happens when a cow lows? The cattle are lowing. Right? You hear that? Lowing? Lowing is when like they're unsettled, they're not happy. Just it's just like a what's up, right? But a lowing is like like they're not happy. Like it sounds like Chris getting up in the morning. Okay. So verse 12, the cows took straight to Beth Shemesh to go to the people of Israel and went along the highway, and they were lowing as they went. They were going unwillingly. They're basically grumbling the whole time because they're pulling weight that they're not used to pulling. They're walking away from their calves. They're used to sharing, and they're walking into a land that they've never been before. So they are going in this direction where they're going. They're walking on this road to go straight there, and they're going like grumbling in their breath. So the cows are literally being propelled by something. They're being led by something.
No, I'm interested in the plan. It sounds pretty. I'm interested.
So let's continue. They did not turn aside to the right hand or to the left, with the lords of the Philistines walking after them to the border of Beth Shemesh. So the lords, the leaders of the Philistines were like, well, we're going to walk right behind this cart too. They'll recognize us. So we're going to walk right behind the cart all the way up to the border. And maybe they'll turn around and be like, why are you doing this to us? Why are you being so mean? You know? And the cows just kept on going.
What verse are you at?
I'm in 13 now. 1 Samuel 6:13. Now, Beth Shemesh was reaping their wheat harvest in the valley. He's eating gravel over here. It sounds like he's eating gravel from the bottom of an aquarium. He's a big old scoop of that. That's hilarious. So, if you'll notice here, the people of Beth Shemesh, which is going to be not too far away from Bethlehem, southwest of Bethlehem. Okay, still deserty, but they have some rain apparently. They're harvesting the wheat. Let's go back a second here. It says here, go back to 1 Samuel 6, verse 5. Therefore you will make images of the tumors and images of your mice that ravage the land, and you will give glory to the God of Israel. And perhaps he will lighten his hand from off of you, even from off of your gods, and from off of your land. Land. So if God has his hand on their land too, what does that tell us if we're inferring this? That perhaps he is not allowing their crops to grow. Because what's happening when the cows walk into Beth Shemesh? 13. The cows walk into Beth Shemesh, and what's happening in Beth Shemesh? They're reaping the wheat harvest. Why are the Philistines not reaping the wheat harvest? Reaping wheat harvest.
Because
They didn't have any. So that's not even mentioned in here, but we can infer by looking that God is, by what's not being said, and they're saying that God would lift his hand from off of your land as well. That perhaps he had put pressure on their land that it wouldn't give them the harvest. But the cows cross that border into Israel, and they're harvesting wheat. Okay? And they lifted up their eyes and saw the ark. The people of Beth Shemesh lifted up their eyes from the wheat harvest and saw the ark on the cart, right? And they rejoiced to see it. Yeah, the ark is back. And it's just like, you got milk cows to pull this thing? How did you pull that off? Because that's kind of amazing. Milk cows don't normally pull a cart.
Bradford's
Like, you got this Bradford Plan.
pretty brilliant.
Verse 14. The cart came into the field of Joshua, the Beth Shemite, and stood there, where there was a great stone. And they split the wood of the cart and offered the cows as a burnt offering to the Lord. The Levites took down the ark of the Lord and the box that was with it, where the articles of gold, tumors, and gold mice were, and put them on the great stone. And the men of Beth Shemesh offered burnt offerings, and made sacrifices the same day to the Lord. And when the 5 lords of the Philistines had seen it, they returned to Ekron the same day. These are the golden tumors which the Philistines returned for a guilt offering to the Lord, for Ashdod, which is a city-state. So what happens is, it would be, let's see here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 guys and 2 gals here, okay? So we got 6 people here today. So it would be like, I agree that I'm going to work with all 6 of us, okay? There was 5 here, but we're going to work all 6 of us, okay? So I'm going to carve out this piece of property between Spring Cypress and Loetta, and between Ella and I-45. That's my piece of property. I'm the king of that piece of property. What are you going to take? Okay, you're going to take from Spring Cypress to 2920, and between Ella and I-45. Okay, that's your property, and you're going to take that one. And so it was basically a confederation of city-states. I ruled my own territory. Now, if you guys needed help, if you guys needed defense, I'd send soldiers over there to help you guys out. Or if we got low on crops, maybe Carol would send some crops to help us, some food to help us out or whatever. We were independent city-states, though. It was like the city and the little bit of land around it was its own, like a little country. But it's, it's just a little city, so it's a little tiny thing, okay? So that's what's happening here. So these, in verse 17, it says, these are the golden tumors which the Philistines returned for a guilt offering to the Lord, for Ashdod. Ashdod was one of the city-states. Okay, and there was a leader of Ashdod. We don't know the names, but the leader of Ashdod. For Gaza, you ever heard of the Gaza Strip? Where's the Gaza Strip?
It's up there by Egypt, isn't it?
It's right here. Where did I say the Philistines were earlier? Right here. Makes sense, right? And today we don't call them Philistines. What do we call them? Palestinians. They are descendants of the Philistines. Do you know that? Yeah. They are descendants of the Philistines. They're still battling it out over there. Today. 3,000 years later. Still fighting. There's not a lot that's going to change that until Christ returns. Okay? For Ashkelon, a tumor. For Gath, a tumor, which later we'll see Gath is kind of where Goliath comes from. You ever heard of Goliath before? And his brothers. And for Ekron, one tumor. So that is the 5 city-states of the Philistines. Now that doesn't mean that there's not other little villages and hamlets, but those are the kind of the big central, that would be Dallas, Houston, Fort Worth, Austin, San Antonio. Those are the big ones. There's other ones in between, but these are the big ones, right? 18. And the golden mice, according to the number of all the cities of the Philistines belonging to the 5 lords, both of fortified cities and of country villages, which is what I just said. And the great stone where they set the ark of the Lord is a witness to this day in the field of Joshua, the Beth Shemite. Now, if you go to the website here, I will have under today, well, it'll be tomorrow. When I put this video that we're making now will be up tomorrow. And you go there. I also put pictures and maps and stuff in there. And I have a picture of the actual stone. It's still there today. And guess what? Carved on it is a cart being pulled by 2 cows with an Ark of the Covenant on the back of it. Isn't it cool? It's there today. It's in this field. It's like going to, you go to Jesse Jones Park and you see the old, go to whatever. They've got this old park over there, the field of Joshua, and it's got the stone there. It's still there today. Pretty cool stuff. All right. So let's go to verse 19. Then, now this is where it starts going. Right? Verse 19. Then he, God, struck the men of Bethshemesh because they had looked into the ark of the Lord.
Yeah, I was wondering, remember what was the contents that was in it, right?
Yeah, we had the tablets of stone.
Right?
We had the branch that blossomed. We had the rod of Aaron. We had the container of manna that was in there.
I think that was it, 3. But here's what I was wondering is, I wonder if that got taken out during this, when when the Philistines took it? Because you know they had to look inside of it.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I wish it would have hit on that a little bit.
It doesn't tell us.
We don't know what happened to the contents.
We don't know what happened to the contents. We're assuming that they're still in there. We're assuming,
Yeah.
but I don't know that for certain.
Carry on.
At this point in our reading through the Bible, it doesn't tell us. Okay? So we're just going to put an asterisk next to that and say, possibly still in there, maybe not.
In the Book of Mormon.
Yeah.
Those are the golden tablets. That's a whole different story. Yeah, that's a whole different story. Miracle of the West, right? All right. So he struck the men down because they had looked at the ark of the Lord. He struck 50,070 men. Now remember last time we talked about the Philistines were whipping up on the Israelites. If you remember, last time we talked about in chapters 4 and 5 that he's already allowed 34,000 Israel men to be slaughtered by the Philistines in the battles. Okay? And now he is allowed for, it's a weird number, right? 50,070 men.
I wonder how they got that count.
Yeah,
I don't know, but I'm guessing
That's such a precise number.
it's so precise. I'm pretty sure they counted this one. It wasn't just like that's like about 4,000 people over there, more or less. Like this was like we counted head for head. Like this is 70. Okay, pretty exact. And the people lamented because the Lord had struck the people with a great slaughter. The men of Beth Shemesh said, "Who was able to stand before the Lord, this holy God? And to whom will he go up from us?" And they sent messengers to the inhabitants of Kiriath Jearim, saying, "The Philistines have brought back the ark of the Lord. Come down and take it up to you." Basically, the Philistines had taken it to the 5 cities, right? And God was killing people there for their idol worship and their disrespect of God's Ark of the Covenant. But then the Israelites get it there, and these guys just, let's look in here, let's party, let's have a party, and let's look in there, and let's touch it, and let's what all these things. And God's like, seriously? It's still not being respected. Boom, 50,070 of you gone. And so he then takes it from about right there, this, I always have a hard time pronouncing it, Kiriath Jearim. Kiriath Jearim is just a little bit further to the east, southwest of Bethlehem there. Now this later is the same town that's Kerioth, is what it's named later. It's Kerioth. And if you'll remember, in our 14 apostles study, which there's 12 original apostles, and then a replacement, and then Paul, the one was added later, so it's 14. But Judas Iscariot is actually Judas of Kerioth. That's actually what that comes from. So this is the place where Judas's line came from. You checking that? Okay. So we see here that these people in Beth Shemesh are like, yay, the ark's here. Let's check it out. Look at it. Oh, about 50,000 people. Okay. How about you guys come take this thing? We don't want it anymore. Okay. So the men, I'm going to chapter 7, verse 1. So the men of Kiriath Jearim came and took up the ark of the Lord, and they brought it into the house of Abinadab on the hill, and sanctified Eleazar his son to keep the ark of the Lord. And from the day the ark resided in Kiriath Jearim, the days increased to 20 years. So basically, they found a place on a hill where they were able to basically be like, let's just put this thing away for a while. Let's not look at it. Let's don't touch it. Eleazar, you're the museum curator. Don't let anybody in. And stay there for 20 years. Untouched, unused. Now, what's missing during these 20 years? It's not saying this, but let's use our mindset. Let's use our thought pattern. That the ark was supposed to be in the Holy of Holies in the tabernacle. And the ark was supposed to be the place that once a year the high priest would go and say, hey, we've been sacrificing every day and every week and every month all year long. And I'm coming in once a year for all the sins that we have asked for before and all the ones that we've forgotten about. Please forgive the sins of my people. before you, God, because you're holy and we're not. Please forgive us. And he would interact with God one day a year at the mercy seat. But the ark's not in the tabernacle. And it's not in there for 20 years. So what's happening? They were lamenting, and they weren't practicing the things that God had put in place in Exodus.
Do we know if the tabernacle was still there? I thought the Philistines, I'm just assuming the Philistines destroyed the temple. Because remember, it wasn't the big temple,
it was the tent.
The tent.
Yeah.
Yeah, the portable.
I don't know. Did they bring the ark by itself, or did they bring the ark along with the whole tabernacle set up? I don't know. It doesn't say. It just says they bring the ark down there. So
I don't know if it was a tabernacle.
I don't know. But they're not using the tabernacle, and they don't have the ark in the Holy of Holies. So
there's not a home for it.
There's not a home for it, and they're not fulfilling the practices that they're supposed to be doing. We looked at that in Exodus. He said,
well, even before the ark, the tabernacle is what they do, or was that the same thing? I mean, did they already do the tabernacle thing before they had the ark, or no?
Yes.
Yeah.
So so they would have had a tabernacle, or they would have at least remade one, right? It hadn't been.
Yeah, but it wasn't. Evidently, what Bradford said, it wasn't important to them.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah,
I'm saying the ark, they would have had the tabernacle.
I'm saying perhaps the tabernacle is still sitting up in Shiloh, up here, and they took the ark out of there just as a token to say, "Oh, look, we got the ark here. Just the presence of God. We're going to beat you guys." And then they got their butts whipped, 34,000 people dead, and then the Philistines then took it as a spoil of war and disrespected it for 7 months and killed all those people. And then when it comes back into the land of Israel, they're like, yay, okay, let's touch it, let's look at it, let's open it up. And God's like, seriously, no one's respecting anything. But during all this time, they haven't been doing the sacrifice of faith, that representing that God's holy and we're not, and sacrificing for the forgiveness of sins and throwing that blood onto the mercy seat, etc. It's in a house on a hill in Kiriath Jearim, down south from where it was supposed to be. So what I'm saying is that they are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're not following in obedience and faith to God during this time period.
They're kind of just stringing it off.
Yeah, they're just kind of, yeah, whatever. So that's chapter 7, verse 1 and 2. Here's the second part of verse 2. And all the house of Israel lamented after the Lord. Samuel spoke to all the house of Israel, saying, if you are returning to the Lord with all your heart, then put away the foreign gods and Ashtoreths from your midst, and make firm your hearts unto the Lord, and serve him only. Then he will deliver you out of the hand of the Philistines. So the children of Israel put away the Baals and the Ashtoreths, and served the Lord only. Now, what you don't see there is that whenever God told them to go into the promised land, in Deuteronomy, he was telling Moses this, and then in Joshua, they're supposed to be going into the promised land, and they were supposed to be getting rid of everybody. Pay no attention to that sound. You probably heard a big crash on that microphone. But they're supposed to kill everybody. Women, children, men, everybody.
The Philistines?
No, the Israelites, when they crossed over the Jordan River to go into the promised land, to conquer the land, they were not supposed to leave anyone behind. They were supposed to kill everybody that was there.
It was Canaanites.
Canaanites.
Okay,
But they were supposed to kill everybody that was there.
yeah, they had some mercy.
And they had mercy, and then they ended up intermarrying, and then they're worshiping all the other things that the Canaanites worshipped, etc. Yeah. Okay? So what he's saying here is he's like, guys, we didn't do it back then. You're not doing it now. If you are returning to the Lord with all your heart. And remember, back into Exodus chapter 6. Or is it Deuteronomy 6? Or maybe it's both. I think it's Deuteronomy 6. It says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your machud, which means all of your everything, all of your being. And so he's saying, if you're really going to do this, if you're going to do this thing, then get rid of all your foreign gods. Quit worshiping the Baals. Quit worshiping the Ashtoreths. Those are Philistine gods. Quit worshiping these things. Put them away. Get rid of them. Why are you holding on to these things? Is it making your life better? Are you seeing any success from it? No, but you continue to hold on to it. Get rid of it. Just because it's what I'm used to doesn't mean it's the right thing. If I have something in my life that, well, this is just a comfortable thing for me. It's comfortable for me to watch Game of Thrones and see all the nudity in there. I mean, that doesn't really bother me. It's just, whatever. Get rid of it. Okay? Get rid of it. That's just Brad saying that. I mean, you can watch whatever you want to watch, but
No, Bradford's gonna start watching. Bradford's gonna start watching Game of Thrones.
I was gonna say, I've never watched it.
so from what I understand, I've never watched it, but from what I understand, there's quite a bit of nudity in there,
Oh.
and that's just there's no reason for that, right? There's no reason for that. One of the 10 commandments from Exodus says, "Do not commit adultery," and then Jesus clarifies later, says, not just don't commit adultery, but when you've lusted after a woman, you've already committed adultery in your heart. So Bradford's in trouble. So here we are in verse 4. So the children of Israel put away the Baals and Ashtoreths and served the Lord only. So they're having a change of heart. Thank you. Finally, right? Then Samuel said, gather all Israel to Mizpah. And Mizpah is not on this map, but if you were to point out Mizpah on this map, it would be between Jerusalem and Shiloh. So not far from Bethel is this other town called Mizpah. It's not really used for much today, but that was a big town back then, okay? And big town, it probably had 50 people instead of 5 people or whatever it was, okay? All right, so go to Mizpah, and I will pray to the Lord for you. So Samuel is saying, I'll make an intercessory then. If you're going to get rid of them, and you got rid of them. You broke those idols. Okay, then let's meet at Mizpah, and I'm going to pray for us. Let's do this thing, okay? So verse 6, they gathered together to Mizpah, and they drew water and poured it out before the Lord, and they fasted on that day, and said there, we have sinned against the Lord. So Samuel judged the children of Israel in Mizpah. Now, if you don't know a lot about the Jewish traditions and customs, you're going to miss this. And I'm actually 3% Jewish is what Ancestry.com says. So I'm 3% promised child, right? Child of God here. So I don't know. I'm just a white honky from England. So I am 3% Jewish, but I don't even know what that means. It's not 3% is what it says. Yeah, not much. So when it says it poured out water, they drew water and poured it before the Lord. That actually goes back to Leviticus, to a ceremony that it's not even like a festival like God said you need to do this festival, but they would take water if the beginning of life, water is required for life to be present. And so what they would say is they would take the water and they would pour it out and they would say, you're going to provide the life for us, not just us relying on the water and the food that we eat and drink. The life comes from you, God. We're going to pour this out as an offering to you, that you provide life. Now, alongside that, there was no command from God directly to do this. It's just become a tradition. During that same time period, they will also do what's called Sukkos. And Sukkot is a fancy word for a tent. A tent made of natural wood, plant, leaf material. Organic material. And they will make these little huts. And they'll have like palm branches and stuff over the top of them. And this normally happens around this time of year. This year it was earlier because the Jewish calendar is off a whole month, which I don't want to get into all that. It happened a month earlier than it should have this year. They got a month off last year. Whatever. I'm not going to go into the whole thing. Because our calendar that we work on is based on a solar calendar. Their calendar that they work off of is a lunar calendar. So like sometimes you have a full moon like the first of the month and then a full moon the 30th day of the month. So you have 2 full moons in 1 month. But they would count that as the beginning of the next month. So it just kind of skews things.
So that's just like the Christian Easter and the Orthodox Easter.
Correct. Same thing. Yeah, Christian Eastern Orthodox Easter. So I'm not even going to go into all that right now, but just know what they were saying is when this moon of the harvest, and that's why they use a lot of organic stuff too, is it's a celebration of the harvest. We're going to pour out water that is more than just the harvest, that you provide life, God. We're going to pour out this water on the ground, celebrate harvest, and they would stay in these huts outside of their house, and they would stay out under the stars for a week to celebrate. It's also called the Feast of Tabernacles or the Feast of Booths. And they would do this every year. Now, if you're going around, even like here in town, you can drive by an apartment complex even, and you'll maybe even see someone will put up a little organic-looking hut on the balcony of their apartment or whatever, because they're still celebrating the Feast of Tabernacles, Feast of Booths. But that's what happens here. So it doesn't say that that's what they're celebrating, but when you know, what were they harvesting? Wheat. They were in the harvest time, right? And they're pouring out water. So you're connecting dots here. Okay? So they're pouring out water, and they're having the harvest, and they fasted on that day and said, we have sinned against the Lord. So Samuel judged the children of Israel in Mizpah. Oh, the other thing I forgot to say is it's also normally leading up to what we call the high holy day of the year, which just happened this past weekend. And that's called Yom Kippur. You ever heard of Yom Kippur? Yom Kippur is the high holy day, and that's where the priest would go into the Holy of Holies and say, I ask for forgiveness for all the nation's sin. I'm the representative here on behalf. Please forgive us our sin, God, in the Holy of Holies. And that's why they call it Rosh Hashanah. That means New Year. It's not because it's the beginning of their calendar. It's because that's the beginning. I have a new start because I am now starting my forgiveness of my sins is complete, and I'm starting fresh. So they celebrate it as their New Year, even though it's not even. It'd be like we're celebrating July 4th is effectively the start of a new year because we declared independence from England. So that's where we'll actually celebrate New Year, even though December 31st is actually the last day of the year. It's kind of the same kind of idea. So Yom Kippur, Feast of Booths, the pour out the water, it's called a water libation celebration. All of that happens. We're in that realm right now, the past month or so. And that's what's happening here. So Samuel says, and they fasted on that day and said, we have sinned against the Lord. So Samuel judged the children of Israel in Mizpah. All right. Now, the Philistines, who are right here, this is where we are. They're right there. Like they're 20 miles away, 25 miles away. They're not like hours and hours and hours and hours. Okay. They're 25 miles. You can do that in a day. You can walk that. The Philistines heard the children of Israel were gathered together to Mizpah. The lords of the Philistines went up against Israel. So they caught them while they were in worship, in prayer, in celebration. It's kind of like when Sam Houston snuck up on Santa Ana at San Jacinto. They were napping. They were sleeping and overwhelmed them. Yep. So that's what's happening here. Philistines heard that the children of Israel were gathered at Mizpah, and the lords of Philistines said, well, let's go do it then. And when the children of Israel heard it, they were afraid of the Philistines. The children of Israel said to Samuel, do not stop crying unto the Lord our God for us, that he might save us out of the hand of the Philistines. Keep praying. Let God be the one to save us. Samuel took a suckling lamb and offered it for a burnt offering unto the Lord, which is what would happen anyway during the time of Yom Kippur. So he's going back accidentally even into doing this procedure. And Samuel cried to the Lord for Israel, and the Lord heard him. Verse 10. As Samuel was offering up the burnt offering, the Philistines drew near to battle against Israel. But the Lord thundered with a great thunder on that day against the Philistines and confused them. So apparently he had a big storm come in there and was boom, 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 boom. And they were just scared and running around and they didn't know what to do. Yeah, absolutely he does. And confused them, so they were beaten before Israel. So Israel came down there and kicked some butt. Finally, right? It's like, come on, guys. Israel's fighting men went out of Mizpah and pursued the Philistines and struck them as far as below Beth Kar. So Beth Kar is going to be down here not far from where David and Goliath little symbol is here. So they were up here in Mizpah, and so they chased them all the way back into their land, basically. Like, get out of here, right? Let's see here. Where are we? Verse 12. Then Samuel took a stone and set it between Mizpah and Shin, and he called its name Ebenezer, saying, thus far the Lord has helped us. Remember I talked about that before? The Ebenezer is the stones that you set up to say, God did something here. God did something here. Okay? That's what these Ebenezer stones are. Now, when you go into the New Testament here, in the New Testament, you'll hear the phrases like, we are living stones. When we're living stones, he's actually using the New Testament word for the Ebenezer. He's saying that we are the living testimonies. This is the stone that was set here to say, look what God did at this place. I am a living stone, saying what God has done in my life. What has he changed in my life? How has he set me free? How has he been faithful? Etc., etc. Okay, so Samuel took and set a stone between Mizpah and Shin, and he called it Ebenezer, saying, thus far the Lord has helped us. So the Philistines were subdued, and they did not again come into the territory of Israel. And the hand of the Lord was against the Philistines all the days of Samuel. The cities which the Philistines had taken from Israel were restored to Israel, from Ekron even to Gath, and Israel rescued their territory out of the hands of the Philistines, and there was peace between Israel and the Amorites. So basically the Israelites were supposed to go all the way out here to the Mediterranean Sea anyway. And so apparently they pushed all these people back where they were then just in the Gaza Strip over here.
Hey, you know the difference between a sea and an ocean? Everybody? No, it's not a joke, it's for real. A sea has to be surrounded by land. And you'll see like the Mediterranean Sea, the Red Sea, right? So look behind you on the wall, an ocean, the Atlantic. See how big it's not surrounded by land.
Mm-hmm.
So a sea has to be surrounded by little
Sea.
Yeah.
Well, that's a gulf, but whatever.
Yeah.
The Caribbean Sea has got, the islands are missing here, but
But it's surrounded by, you can see how it's surrounded by land. So that's between sea and ocean.
nice. All right, verse 15. So Samuel judged Israel all the days of his life, and he went annually in a circuit to Bethel and Gilgal and Mizpah, and he judged Israel in all those places. But his return was to Ramah, for his house was there, and there he judged Israel, and there he built an altar to the Lord. So it's kind of a happy ending here. We're going to close this chapter on the introduction of Samuel and the people of Israel. Next week, we're going to talk about Israel messing up again. The easiest way I can say is Israel messing up again. Okay? We think that we have good times. Like you've heard this phrase, hard times create hard men. Hard men create better times. Better times create soft men. Soft men create hard times. Right? So they've got good times right now. Good times create soft men. And so that's what we're going to see in chapter 8, is Israel is not having to fight. Their crops are doing fine. They've got this and that and the other. And we're going to see them, they're getting comfortable. So now,
Geronimo had a saying, he says, put 4 walls around a man, he turned soft. So even when he was captured, he slept outside.
yeah. So that's it for tonight. Thanks for coming.
Good teaching.